I'm Dave Ingebretson. LeRoy Hyatt and I would like to welcome you to another edition of Fly Tying, the Angler's Art. Today we've got an interesting show for you, I hope. We're going to start out with a very versatile fly called the Stimulator. Occasionally people mispronounce it and they call it the Simulator, but I think the original title was the Stimulator. And the nice thing about the Stimulator is it can be tied in a variety of colors and sizes. It'll represent a stonefly or a caddisfly or even a grasshopper. And so it's a good fly anywhere in the country that you have those flies, and that's everywhere. Our second fly we'll tie is an extremely popular fly wherever steelhead are found, and that's the bomber. It's a skating fly, a waking fly, used to bring these big fish up to the top. And so again, wherever there are steelhead, it's a good fly. But more than that, it can also be tied as a bass bug. You can use it just as is for a bass bug, or you can put on a couple of big saddle hackles for a tail, and we'll talk about that when we get there. So if you're a bass fisherman or a steelhead fisherman, you should be interested in seeing the bomber. Well, LeRoy, let's find out about the Stimulator.
Okay, the first one we will tie is the Stimulator. I'll use the brown saddle, I'll use a grizzly saddle, I'll use 2 different colors of polypropylene yarn, and I'm going to use elk hair tonight. We could use deer hair with this, but I really prefer the elk hair.
Well, the deer hair tends to flare out.
Flares
a lot.
out really
it's a little more
bad,
hollow.
yes. I'm going to put the hook in the vise and crimp that barb down again, and then I'll drop it in here. I'm going to use orange thread, black thread, yellow thread. Any of that would be very suitable for this fly also.
I use orange a lot. I tie a lot of orange Stimulators and yellow ones, and I generally try to match the thread to the body.
Now what I've done, just a small clump of elk hair. I'm going to take the under fur out, and you can see how the tips are all uneven. I'll put them in here and just give them a quick tap and get them all nice and even. I don't think it makes any difference to the fish, but it looks a whole lot better to the tire.
Hey, if you're selling flies, you got to catch the fisherman first.
Right. Now I'm going to go ahead and trim this off at an angle. I really don't need those butts there. When I let go here, you'll be able to see that the tail is fairly short. And I'll just get all those nice and bound down. Now you can see how that tail is there. I really don't care about all those other little butts sticking out there. Polypropylene yarn comes in a single strand, but in that there's actually 3 strands woven together. I don't want to use all 3 strands at once. It makes the fly entirely too bulky. So I'm going to cut just 1 strand off and tie it in place. Then I'm going to tie in a brown hackle here at the back. Now, I have seen this fly tie grizzly hackle, both front and rear section. It's just, I guess, whatever the tyer is liking or wanting to do. I personally like to vary my color like this. Now here, again, like we've done before, I'm going to take a wrap behind that hackle, and then I'm going to start forward. And remember, with polypropylene, we don't like to pull it too tight because it'll force all the air out.
You know, I like using that polypro. I like seeing you do it, and I'm going to have to start doing it because I usually dub my bodies, and this is so much quicker. And I expect a little higher floating, too.
Oh, it floats very well. Now I'm going to just palmer this brown hackle through that. I can't say it's really looking like much yet, would you?
No, but I know where you're going, and I appreciate what you're doing.
All right, now I get another clump of elk hair. Again, I'm going to take the underfur out, and this will become the wing. Get them all nice and even again. And I'm going to make this one now, of course, longer than I did the tail. It's going to come back about half the length of the tail from the tie-in point. Again, I'm going to get rid of those butts. I don't need them on there. And cinch it down. Now I'm just going to go over this a little bit just to kind of capture all those loose butt ends that are wrapped in there.
Oh, I've had some good days on the Stimulator. That's really gotten to be a standard fly for me.
Excellent.
It's big enough so even I can see it.
Hoppers
and
in the fall
hopper
for
time,
hoppers.
it's great. Again, small flies for a small caddis or small
You can tie 'em
stoneflies,
in
big
large
stoneflies,
size.
any size. regular shank hook, long shank hook?
Yeah, this happens to be a long shank, but you
Yeah.
could tie it definitely on a regular shank
yeah.
hook.
Well, most of the time I use a long shank hook, but again, if you want smaller caddis, you
Tie
don't
it on
have
a
to.
straight.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to wrap the orange in.
Now that's something I haven't seen, is using the two colors, thorax and body.
Would you tie it all yellow or all
Yeah.
orange?
Well, actually, I don't put anything ahead of the wing but a hackle. I've never seen a
Oh, really?
thorax come on like that.
Well, then it's the same old thing. Just
Yeah.
wrap this grizzly hackle.
Yeah.
It does give just a little bit different appearance.
And again, I've always used the same hackle that I've used for the Palmer.
Uh-huh. Well, I think maybe the original pattern was a grizzly hackle all the way through.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't remember that for sure, but like with any pattern, it's been varied and made to suit individual
Yeah.
needs.
No, I've always tied it with one color body and the grizzly hackle. Usually a one color hackle, whatever hackle I use.
I'll just finish up a little head.
That's why I
here.
was wondering when I saw those different materials out there. Now, how are you going to incorporate all that into one fly?
Well, so many times, too, you'll see an orange insect out, especially in the fall.
Oh, yeah.
That could then make up for that.
Well, I
fly
think that's
also.
good advice to tyers, is you don't have to just slavishly follow
Absolutely
what the
not.
recipe says.
Absolutely not.
As long
Well,
as you keep it reasonable.
That's
and
what we're looking
a variety
for.
of reasonable colors.
Yes. So that's the stimulator. Again, we'll use elk hair for wing and tail. We'll use the yellow polypropylene for the rear 2/3 of the body with brown hackle, orange for the front third, and grizzly hackle.
All right, that was great. Now I'm really looking forward, LeRoy, to seeing you tie this bomber, because I know LeRoy has got several variations that I haven't seen, and he's also got a use for a material that I usually throw away. And
Probably most people do.
Yeah, I think probably so. It's normally wasted material, and you've done something pretty neat with it. So let's get on to tying the bomber.
Okay.
And see how you do it.
I'll use brown saddle hackle. I'll use a white calf tail. And then the part that most people throw away is that little curly tipped end that are on most calf tails. This is not my idea, believe it or not, did Bill McMillan. And then I will also use the deer hair to spin the body. I'm going to use an eye-up hook, a looped eye hook. It is standard in Steelhead hooks.
Now tell people what you mean by a looped eye.
I'll turn it around. You can see how it's formed here. All one large piece, of which the fly will be tied over a portion of that, which will make the hook that much
It
stronger.
has a part of the eye goes back along the shank, and you get it covered with threads, so there's no sharp edge there.
Right.
Yeah.
Now here again, I'm going to depart from the normal way most people tie flies. Not that I'm abnormal, but okay.
I didn't say it. I would.
Now I'm going to take a piece of this curled calf tail all the way up on the very tip. Now, if you feel that, you can feel that that tip is extremely stiff.
Oh, yeah.
It is not
Oh, yeah.
like calf tail that you find down on the lower body section.
Well,
Now you
I've
can-
always figured, well, what do you do with this twisted up old stuff?
Okay, I'll show you. Now, you see the natural twist in here?
Uh-huh.
What I'm going to do is tie that in so that their natural curve is going up.
Uh-huh. Now, this is the wing you're starting with.
This is the wing I'm starting with. Now, I'm going to come in here and trim this off. I don't need that other curl in there.
Ah.
Okay? See the natural curve?
Yeah.
Acts just like the rudder of a ski.
Yeah. And you say Bill McMillan came up
Bill
with this.
McMillan's, as far as I know, he was the one that came up. Bill was the one that showed me this pattern.
You know, I haven't seen Bill for years, but I used to guide with him on the Henry's Fork back in the
really?
70s. And back then he was living out of a VW microbus and going wherever the fishing was good.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I had some good times with Bill.
Now, you see, and something else I've done here is I've covered this entire hook shank with thread. A lot of the books you read will tell you that you need to spin the hair on a bare hook shank.
Mm-hmm.
It will definitely spin easier. I won't argue that. But when you're through, you can also spin the body around the hook.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, for the tail,
Does it, well, I can wait till you get there, but I was going to ask, having the hook shank covered with thread, does it affect the ability to pack it?
no, none whatsoever. None whatsoever. Now, I'm going to tie this in as a tail. I don't need a real long piece here at all. And I'm going to get rid of these. I don't need them. And I'm going to tie in a saddle hackle.
And this will be the palmer?
This will be the palmer. Strip a little piece of that off. Couple of wraps, and I'm going to put some more.
Now, I notice you
rubber-based
generally
cement.
tie in your palmer hackle on the off side of the hook, that is the side away from you. Is there a
No, I
reason
tie it
for that?
on right on top of the hook.
top
is
of the
where
hook.
I have
Okay, I
it
couldn't
tied.
exactly see
It's,
from
yeah, it's hanging over that side a little bit. But that way, when I start to wrap, it will come right around to me.
Uh-huh.
Now, you can see I've got quite a little bit of that rubber-based glue in there, but that hair is going to spin right into it, and it will certainly make it hold a whole lot better. I'm going to take a clump of deer hair, and I'm using as fine a thread as I can use. This happens to be a multi-strand thread, but it's about equivalent of a 6/0. If you use too heavy a thread, it won't catch that deer hair that well.
Uh-huh.
Now I'm going to lay it on top, tighten up a little bit. I'm going to hold this hackle so it doesn't go around, and I'll just spin that hackle right around. Now I'm going backwards right now toward the tail, just to make sure that I get it all bound in place.
You know, I think that's a step that a lot of tires don't do. They only wind forward and they don't go back and forth
yes.
a little bit.
And it'll sometimes leave gaps in the back of the fly.
Well, and it won't be bound down as well either,
Very
so
true.
the body will rotate.
Now I'm going to trim again. I don't need all those tips in there. I've seen people tie this fly where they will actually leave the tips on.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the road.
Yeah.
They are in the road.
Well, I think it's interesting, too, that you're really taking a fairly small clump.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people try to put too much on at one time.
Well, hair will actually cut the thread if you try
Well,
to use too much hair. Yes, it
I
will.
didn't know that.
Now I'm going to pack this a little bit, and you can see it will definitely move together.
Mm-hmm.
There are hair packers on the market that you can do this with if you don't want to use your thumbnail. And now let's put one more in. And then I'm going to do something that happens to every fly tire. It doesn't matter who you are.
Oh, I know what you got to be talking about.
What's that?
Breaking the thread.
Break the thread.
Especially with hair work. People are cranking down on that thread, and invariably you break it at this point.
Yes. Now I'm going backwards again through that to marry those two pieces. Now I'm not going to break my thread because it'll
I know
pop
that
down
you've
through
never
the
done
bobbin.
that, I suppose.
No, never. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it.
Okay.
Now you see the fly is not going to come apart
Okay.
at all. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to catch just this little tag of thread that's going to break off, run my scissors down, cut it off. Now I'll just pull out a long section, lay it in there, and start wrapping again.
Laying well back into the deer hair.
Well back into it, and I'm going over it again. Now I'm going to capture that in that manner. I've gone over it now several times. I know that the fly is still not going to come apart. So if you do break your thread tying this, don't undo the whole fly.
Well, it helps to
start
have
all
that
over.
cement down there, too, I'm sure.
Oh, it
Things
will.
don't fly apart.
Sure. I'm going to put in one more small clump of hair here.
That's a good demonstration. Because everybody breaks thread.
Everyone breaks their thread. And tie it down again.
That's what I was curious to see when you have that wing tied in, how you work around that. And it
Well, I've
doesn't
got
seem to
one
be a
little
problem.
blank spot over here that I didn't get enough hair in that last section. I'm going to cheat the system here and put just a small piece in over here, and nobody will ever know the difference. There, now you didn't see that, did you?
See what?
Okay. Now I have it all packed together. I'm going to get my thread up in front now because that's where I want this fly to finish. I'm going to put a
Whip
small
finish over the top of the
hitch.
wing or under it?
No, I'm going to do it behind because most of the time people will riffle hitch this fly. Now I'm going to take this fly out of the vise, but I'm going to leave it right here. I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to trim this belly exactly flat.
To open up the gap.
Open up the gap, and another reason, it lets the fly float a little better. It's sitting on something a little bit flat there. Okay? Now I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to start back here at the back. And again, I'm using my scissor as a cutting tool, but also as a protector. I lay the edge of the blade against the part I want to protect and cut with the other side. And I'm just going right around, trimming this down fairly close. And we'll turn it around again. And now I'm going to start trimming it in kind of a triangle shape. Some people call it a cigar shape. The fly will actually be larger on the front end than it is on the rear. Now you can see it's starting to take shape. I'll get that a little bit more even.
It's so much fun for me to watch you do hair work, because that's the worst thing I do.
Oh, you mean to spin hair, work with hair?
Well, just to work with hair.
Well,
I'm getting better.
It's like with anything, the more you practice at it, the more you learn how to do it.
Well, I think the thing that helps me is making sure it's well packed.
Well packed is an absolute plus.
Yeah.
Another reason this hair will look so well packed is because it's tight on a thread base. That when you pack that together, it's going to stay there. It's not going to move around at all.
I think that's important, because I suspect that an awful lot of people think you have to have a bare hook.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
it will
not
spin
true.
easier. It will definitely spin easier, but it
spins easier after it's finished, too.
Now here comes the hackle. Now another tip that I will occasionally do is, got one straggler there.
So you reattach the thread, of course.
I reattach the thread again now in the same place I left off. Many times, if you're concerned about breaking your hackle back here, tie on two. Now, if you cut one off or you break it, you got a backup.
You know, that's a good idea, because that's so maddening when you've done all the work and then all of a sudden there's your brittle hackle broken or something.
Now here I am just palmering straight through all that
leave
hair.
the other one if you don't need it, just pull it out when you're done.
Cut it off when you're through.
I never thought of it. Good trick.
Now I'm going to clip this little hackle off. Now I'm finishing this in front of the wing, because again that will give me that chance to riffle hitch the fly behind the wing if I need to do that.
Let's say that again. You're finishing it
behind
the wing.
Yes, yes. You could, if it was going to be a show fly, I might well finish it in front of the wing, but we're using this to go out and fish with.
Well, now before we leave the fly, let's talk about it as a bass bug.
It would definitely work as a bass bug.
It would work the way it is as a bass bug just fine, or if you want to, rather than put in that tail, of calf tail, you could take a couple of wide webby saddle hackles, maybe 4, and match them in pairs, and have them splayed out in back, and do the same fly exactly, but have the
have it for bass. Now let me show you one thing. Let's come back to this one time. I have another one tied here that I'm going to lay side by side with that.
Oh, that's the original version.
Now that's the commercial tie. You can see the difference in the front wing. Either one will catch fish, absolutely no problem. But I think this one will come through the water just a little better.
Well, it looks cute, and better than anything, it gives you a chance to use the part of the calf tail
that
you usually throw away.
Let me put a little head cement on here, and we'll call this one ready to go fishing with.
And that's the bomber.
And there's the bomber. What we've used again is the calf tail. For the tail, we've used deer body hair for the body and palmer it with brown hackle, and a white calf tail wing, whether you choose the curly part or the straight.
Well, we've got a little extra time. We're going to throw a bonus fly at you today. We're going to tie the ugly Rudamus, developed by John Faust of Hamilton, Montana. So tell us about the ugly Rudamus.
All right. We'll use a pearl flashabou for this fly. This will consist of body material and underwing. We'll use an artificial wing material. You could also use turkey wing for this, and we'll use deer hair. Now, I've already placed a 3X long shank hook in the vise. I'm going to cut off just a few strands of this flashabou, and you don't need a whole lot of it at all. I've probably got 7 or 8 strands there is all I have.
People tend to overdo that, I think.
Yes. Now this is going to become the body material. I'm going to run my tying thread to the front now. Try to get that bound down as I go. And now I'm going to wrap this pearl flashabou through that. Now you can see that it's going to start picking up that yellow thread. It's going to show through that just a little bit of translucency. keeping those as tight together as I can. Come up about to this area. I'm going to stop it on top, take a couple of wraps, and fold this over. Now that's going to become my underwing, and cut it off. Now I'm going to take this artificial wing material.
Sort of a net-like veined material?
Kind of,
yeah.
yep. Now turkey could be used for this also. I'm going to fold it exactly in half. What I'm going to do is just make a wing. I also think that this comes pre-formed. You can buy it already pre-formed so that you don't have to take time to cut it. And I'm just going to cut right around the little circle there. And you can see what that's done. It's just made a little teardrop type wing.
Yeah.
I'm going to lay that on top of that, tie it down. And what that does, it serves two purposes. It'll trap air, help the fly to float, but it'll also hold those little strands of flashaboo down. Now I'm going to take a little bit of deer here. Doesn't take a whole lot for this fly.
Really looks like a little hopper at this point.
So far, it really does, and it will imitate a hopper. I'll put it in here, give them a quick stack. And when I take this out, I'm going to take them out backwards than I normally do because I'm going to put the tips over the eye of the hook. And I'm going to take a quick measure here on it. That's a little bit long. Let's try it about there. Stick my fingers in there and trim it all off. That may still be a little bit long. Now I'm just going to lay it on there, take a wrap.
Are you spinning it around the hook at this point? It will now
spin around. And I'll bind down as many of those little butt sections as I can. And then I'm going to bring the thread back to where I finished or tied the wing in. Now there's a little tool that John Faust developed to put this on. You could do the same thing with the end of a ballpoint pen. It's just a little round piece to fold all that over.
And maybe a half-hitch tool.
Well, it might be a little soft for that. And then I'm going to just take some wraps right there.
Oh, a bullet head.
I'll pull it off. What that's done is just create a small bullet head. Now I'll whip finish this.
Oh, that's a neat fly.
You can see a few stragglers hanging out there. Now one thing that I do to open this fly up, I'm going to come to the very bottom and just clip that deer hair off right there.
Oh, to open up the
What it
point
does
of the hook.
is it opens up so you can see that pearl flashaboo through the deer hair. Now I'll put head cement on this.
Well, you know, I've got to say, as long as I've known John and I've known about the ugly Rudamus, I've never tied one and I've never fished it.
This will be the first fly I'll put on for a tractor pattern. Early spring, high water. Oh, I love it. I love it. Put a little bit more head cement.
Well, I'm certainly going to start tying some of those.
There's the ugly Rudamus. We've used the pearl flashaboo for the body and underwing. We have used the artificial wing for the overwing and deer hair for the head and wing.
Well, that's our show for this time. We hope you've enjoyed it, and again, we hope you've learned a few tips. We've talked about the Stimulator, a good searching fly, imitates a hopper or a stonefly or
a caddis fly.
We've talked about the great bomber, a skater surface fly for steelhead, and also a good bass fly, which a lot of people don't realize. And finally, we've given you a bonus fly tonight, the wonderful ugly Rudamus. So we hope you'll tune in again next week. We'll have some more surprises for you, some more good patterns. We hope so. And in the meantime, good tying to you, and most of all, good fishing. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
Dave and LeRoy have produced two 100-minute videos covering basic trout fly selection and tying for the western and eastern United States. For basic western and eastern flies videos, call 1-800-883-0124 or visit our website at publictelevision.org. Cost of each video is $16.95 or get both for just $31.95 plus shipping and handling. You can also order the programs from this series. Each videotape includes 3 programs for just $22.95 plus shipping and handling. To order, call 1-800-883-0124 or visit us at our website publictelevision.org.